Hey, Tiger fans, welcome in to a Thursday afternoon edition of the Babin on the Bayou show. I'm your host, as always, Justin Babin Jr. Thursday, May 28th, 2026 edition of the Babin on the Bayou show. Thank you so much. As always, I appreciate all of you for tuning into the show. Got a lot to get to today. Before we get into it, I want to take the time before we get into and dive into everything we're going to get to on the show today. I want to tell you about some of our wonderful sponsors. First, the team over at Shield Heating and Cooling. Shield Heating and Cooling, 22546 Bayou, 22546 Bayou, BAYOU. That is the number for your free AC system clean and check for every AC system in your home, courtesy of the wonderful team and our friends over at Shield Heating and Cooling, plus the bakery over at Sugar Me Sweets Cakes and Confections. Sugar Me Sweets Cakes and Confections has it all from fresh baked chocolate chip cookies to cupcakes to cake squares to custom decorated cakes. Sugar Me Sweets Cakes and Confections has it all. Their number 225-250-1950, 225-250-1950, or you can visit them. Their bakery is in Central Louisiana, located in the city of Central, 8565 Rome Drive, 8565 Rome, ROME Drive, for our friends over at Sugar Me Sweets, Cakes and Confections. And last but most certainly not least, our wonderful friends over at NOLA Plumbing and Construction. NOLA Plumbing and Construction, great team, high quality team, great people. They do great work. They're trustworthy, they're dependable and reliable. So if you're in the Baton Rouge area or the surrounding Baton Rouge area and you have any plumbing needs, give the team over at NOLA Plumbing and Construction a call today. Their number 225-512-2900, 225-512-2900 for the team over at NOLA Plumbing and Construction. Again, as always, we love and greatly appreciate all of our wonderful sponsors here daily at the Babin on the Bayou show. What is up, Randy? What is up, Randy? We are live. You are right, sir. Thank you, Randy, and thank you to all the rest of you who are tuning into the show. I greatly appreciate it. Okay, we got a few things to get to on the show today. I tried to talk about this a little bit yesterday on the show yesterday at the end, but I felt like I kind of rushed through it and didn't get to everything that I wanted to talk about. So I kind of want to just lead off the show with some LSU football talk, with just talking about what's going on the LSU football front. Obviously, SEC spring meetings have been this week. That's been the real big thing going on in SEC football. We kind of talked on the show yesterday. It's kind of crazy that one of the main headlines of SEC spring meetings is Greg Sankey and the SEC, Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner, considering whether or not to reprimand Lane Kiffin for what he said a few weeks ago in an article and an interview to Vanity Fair about some, struggles he had while he was the coach at Ole Miss with recruiting, some valid concerns that, parents had and high school players had. And as I said before, it's not like Lane Kiffin was lying. It's not like he wasn't telling the truth. This is something that he actually had to go through, something that valid concerns that parents of high school, players brought up to him. It's not like Lane Kiffin was lying. And that's one part of it. And then the other part of it is, if you just reprimand Lane Kiffin, then you make the SEC and Greg Sankey look like hypocrites. Because what about what Steve Sarkisian said a few weeks ago about the lack of academic standards at other SEC programs and SEC schools compared to Texas? What about Pete Golding yesterday, basically talking about the tampering allegations, the tampering that was done with linebacker Luke Farrelly, basically being like, I'm not going to say we did it. I'm not going to say we didn't do it, but it's not like nobody else does it. So Pete Golding basically coming out and basically saying, well, we're not the only one with dirt on our hands and stuff like that. So it's like, to me, if it happens, it's just a level of hypocrisy from Greg Sankey and the SEC, because if you're going to do it to Lane, what about Steve Sarkisian? What about Pete Golding? Like, it's the same exact thing. But you're only going after Lane Kiffin, or potentially going after Lane Kiffin, because that's the popular thing to do, because that's what everybody is doing these days, right? You're just trying to do what everybody else is doing. You're trying to do the popular thing or whatever that is, right? And I think Greg Sankey continues to embarrass himself a little bit, not just with this, but with other things that we can get into at a later date. But Greg Sankey keeps making himself and the SEC look bad and look like they don't have good leadership. Let's just leave it at that. I, along with a lot of other people, were not great fans of Greg Sankey lately and what he's doing and how he's leading the SEC. But the other thing I wanted to get to, we kind of talked about this, kind of rushed through it at the end of the show yesterday, is this weekend starts a big, stretch of recruiting weekends for LSU football. You got some top prospects in the country for the 2027 class visiting not only this weekend, but you're going to have official visits over the next 3 to 4 weekends as well. And a lot of this information I'm about to give you comes from Shea Dixon over with the Bengal Tiger and On 3, who I think is the best when it comes to covering LSU recruiting and all of that. Really, really enjoy the work that Shea Dixon does. But like this weekend, LSU has six of the top players from the 2027, recruiting class from the 2027 cycle visiting LSU campus, visiting Baton Rouge, and taking official visits this weekend. And 4 of those 6 are 5-star prospects. 4 of those 6 are some of the best in the entire country, 5-star prospects. I think the biggest one that a lot of people talk about is Easton Royal. Easton Royal, 5-star wide receiver, the number 1 wide receiver in America in the 2027 class. He's not only the number 1 wide receiver in the 2027 class, but he's from New Orleans and plays high school football at Brother Martin, right? And Easton Royal is a game changer. He is elite. He is a stud. He is the best wide receiver in the nation. He is arguably maybe the best pure athlete in this recruiting class. And he's super, super fast, super, super quick. And again, the big thing about him is he's from Louisiana. And I've tried to make this point before, like, occasionally these top prospects come along and these special talents come along that are in your state that you just have to do everything in your power to keep. Like, I think about Michigan and Bryce Underwood. If you're Michigan, that was the guy that you had to keep. You had to do everything in your power and throw all of the money that you could at Bryce Underwood to keep him in the state of Michigan, because you know how important he was and you know how key it was to keep him in the state of Michigan. And it's kind of similar with Easton Royal potentially, because if you're going to use the moniker that people have used before, the best in the boot stay in the boot, well, the best in the boot is Easton Royal. Easton Royal is the best in the boot, and not only one of the best in the boot, but one of the best in the country. And he would be a game changer. Now, he is committed to Texas right now. He is committed to the Longhorns. He committed to them in November. Actually, it's kind of funny. He committed to them a day before it was officially announced that Lane Kiffin was coming on to be the new head coach at LSU. Made that commitment to Texas. Easton Royal made that commitment to Texas the day before Lane Kiffin was announced officially as the new head coach of the Tigers. But LSU is obviously trying to do everything they could to flip him from Texas. He's had a few visits to LSU and to Baton Rouge over the past couple of months, and he's taking his official visit with his family this weekend. And again, that is probably arguably the biggest recruit of the 2027 class that you're going after. But he's not the only big one that's taking an official visit to campus this weekend. As I said, there's 4 5-stars taking a visit to campus this weekend. Another one of them is, according to Rivals, the number 1 overall prospect in America, the number 1 player in the country, and a 5-star defensive lineman out of Cedar Hill, Texas, in Jalen Brewster. Jalen Brewster is a 5-star top recruit in the country, according to Rivals, defensive lineman. Like Easton Royal, who's currently committed to Texas, Jalen Brewster is currently committed to Texas Tech. but you're trying to do everything you can to potentially flip him, to potentially get him, and throw the book at him and do what you can as a staff to pitch to him to flip his recruitment and his commitment from Texas Tech to LSU. And again, number one wide receiver in the country in Easton Royal, number one overall player in the country in Jalen Brewster. Another guy there's another 5-star wide receiver visiting this weekend, Xavier Sabb from New Jersey, who is the number 7 wide receiver in the country in this recruiting class. So not only do you have the number 1 wide receiver in the country, or not only do you have the number 1 wide receiver in the country visiting this weekend, but you also have the number 7 overall wide receiver in the country. So number 1 wide receiver in the country in Easton Royal, number 7 wide receiver in the country in Xavier Sabb. Both of those guys are visiting this weekend, along with the number 1 overall prospect and Jalen Brewster. You also have another 5-star, your 4th 5-star visiting this weekend, and Abraham Cisse out of Pennsylvania. He's the number 2 edge rusher in the country and the number 16 overall prospect in the country. Notre Dame currently, according to Shea Dixon, Notre Dame currently leads on Abraham Cisse right now. But that's another big recruit that is visiting this weekend and that you're trying to get. So again, that's 4 5-stars. That's the number 1 wide receiver in the country, the number 7 wide receiver in the country, the number 2 edge rusher in the country. And oh yeah, by the way, the number 1 overall prospect in the country, regardless of position. All of those guys are going to be in Baton Rouge and on LSU's campus this weekend. And then you have 2 others, Marquez Davis, who is a 3-star cornerback out of Opelousas, Louisiana, who actually, I believe, played both cornerback and wide receiver in high school, so kind of an athlete. But Corey Raymond, that's a guy that Corey Raymond has been going after, according to Shea Dixon, one of Corey Raymond's top targets potentially in this upcoming recruiting class. And Marquez Davis, he's going to be there this weekend. And then a 4-star safety from Georgia, and Adrian Cole, who is a top 5 safety and a top 100 prospect overall in this recruiting class. Now, Georgia leads on Adrian Cole, so potentially you could see him staying in state. But again, that's 6 prospects. That's 4 5-stars, including 2 top 10 wide receivers, a top 2 edge rusher, the number 1 overall prospect in the class. Then you have a 4-star who's a top 5 safety in the country. And then you have a 3-star cornerback in Marquez Davis, who by all reports, Corey Raymond is really high on bringing him over and bringing him in, one of Corey Raymond's top cornerback prospects in this upcoming recruiting class. Again, you have some work to do. Texas Tech already has a commitment of Jalen Brewster. Texas already has the commitment of Easton Royal. You're trying to flip both of those guys. Georgia is leading on Adrian Cole. Abraham Cisse, Notre Dame is leading on him. So you have some work to do, obviously. But this weekend is the start of a big month in terms of official visits on the weekends. Again, give credit to Shea Dixon for all of the coverage that he does in recruiting. I think one of the biggest things about this is not only is this Lane Kiffin's first official full class to recruit, and you're really interested in that, and not only do these players have to sit across from Lane Kiffin, who is one of the best coaches in the country, one of the top offensive minds, maybe the top offensive mind in the country, but you also have Coach O now. You also have Ed Orgeron now. And that is another big aspect of this. I love the Coach O hire. I talked about it on the show last Thursday. I absolutely love it because, I mean, not only what he already done at LSU, being the head coach in 2019 for, in my mind, the best team in the history of the sport of college football, but also nobody knows and understands the state of Louisiana more, and nobody loves the state of Louisiana more than Coach O. And then not only that, but he's also an elite and a phenomenal recruiter. And while he was coaching, he was also an elite level defensive line coach as well. One of the best recruiters, one of the best defensive line coaches. I know he's been out of the sport for a few years now, but when he was still coaching, that was what he was. And not only is, and other people have talked about this before. I'm not the only person who's going to talk about it now, but like, think about a kid like Easton Royal, who's from New Orleans, who played high school, who is currently playing high school football at Brother Martin. What, he's like 17 years old now. So in 2019, while Coach O was coaching that team, he was what, like maybe 10 years old during 2019? Like, Easton Royal, as a Louisiana kid, was raised on Coach O. He was raised on Coach O. He was raised on 2019 LSU with Jamar Chase, with Justin Jefferson, with Joe Burrow, with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Like, that is the guy that Easton Royal is going to meet with this weekend, along with Lane Kiffin, who's maybe the top offensive mind and top offensive coach in the sport, and Charlie Weiss Jr. Like, bringing Coach O on, this is where you're going to see Coach O go to work. He's a special assistant to recruiting, and he's a special assistant to defense. And it's not only Easton Royal, who is a Louisiana kid, and as a Louisiana kid, knows everything you need to know about Coach O in 2019 LSU. Again, he was probably raised on that. And then you also have the number one overall prospect in the country and the defensive lineman out of Texas and Jalen Brewster. As I mentioned earlier, when Coach O was still coaching in the sport, he was one of the top defensive line coaches in the country. He was an elite level defensive line coach. So there's so many different things here. There's so many different things here that are appealing and that make you excited as an LSU fan. Not only is it seeing Lane Kiffin, have his first full go at recruiting a class. Now, I know he kind of locked down the class in December, but this is his first full go and full round of recruiting a full recruiting class at LSU and building it from the ground up. But having Coach O back and having him back, and you're only paying him $100,000 a year, which I know that's a lot to you and me, obviously, but to them, to LSU, and to these coaches, it's not. $100,000 is not a lot of money to them. To us, it is. To them, it's not. And I think this weekend is going to be exciting. I think it's going to be exciting to see, obviously, football season ramps up on September 5th. Like, I am so pumped and so jacked for that. I mean, we're 100 days away from that. Officially today, I think we're 100 days away from opening weekend, LSU versus Clemson on September 5th. But this weekend, I'm excited to see what Lane Kiffin does with his first recruiting class, and I'm excited to see what Coach O does now that he's brought in, because we know how much of a great recruiter Coach O is, and we know how much of a great defensive line coach that he is, and that it's going to be really, really appealing, especially for some of these Louisiana recruits, top Louisiana recruits like Easton Royal, not only sitting across from Lane Kiffin, but from Coach O as well. So I'm really, really excited about this weekend. Wanted to kind of talk about that and kind of get into that. Let me see. Let's get into this. Randy Easton Royal is the best athlete in the class, according to our man AP. His track film is insane. Looks like a grown man among boys. I don't think. I mean, he's phenomenal, man. He's phenomenal. He is a game changer. What is up, AP? What is up, Unc? Appreciate you boys. Appreciate y'all. Let's see. Unc is about to lose his mind over excitement over Coach O joining the Lane Train. Got the best two recruiters in the country and the best in the state for talent with no in-state competition. Yes. All right. He is still 16. He is still 16. That's my point. Like, what I'm making earlier is, like, in 2019, he was 9 years old, living as a kid in Louisiana. Like, he was raised on 2019 LSU and Coach O. Like, he knows about it. So, and I know, again, AP talked about this on his show days ago. But I do think this weekend, man, getting to see Coach O really get into this recruiting class, talk to Easton Royal, talk to Jalen Brewster, like, that is something that is going to be exciting. And I'm excited to see not only what Coach O does, but also what Lane Kiffin can do with this first full recruiting class at LSU. Easton would be hard to pull. May have to. May let's see what's. Can you get Royal? Oh yeah, that would be awesome. That would be awesome if you were able to get Royal on your show. That would definitely be awesome. But yeah, man, like I think it's going to be very, very exciting over the next month or 2 months and seeing how this recruiting class pans out. Because again, you combine Lane Kiffin and Coach O, put those two together. I wanted to touch on a little bit more of LSU baseball. We talked a lot about this yesterday. We went through a lot of this yesterday and on the show on Tuesday as well. So I'm not going to get into this, but like the news about Derek Curiel, breaking his ankle in November of 2025. And then by the time he resumed in January, you only had 3 weeks really to get ready for the season. And ends up like still having a phenomenal season, still leading the team in doubles, still leading the team in batting average, as he kept going along and getting further and further away from that ankle injury. He started to where by the end of the season, he was playing his best baseball and looking like the phenomenal player that he is. I mean, Derek Curiel is going to play for a long time. I know a lot of people were talking about Derek Curiel and Stephen Milam and Jake Brown and are they coming back? I know there's been rumblings. I don't know anything. Like I don't know anything, but I know a lot of people have been talking about it and the potential of it. And again, it is not impossible. It is not impossible. They may come back. I don't think you're getting all three back. Like if you get all three back, good Lord, like that would be insane. I don't think that's happening. But like even if you got one of the three back, between Stephen Milam and Jake Brown and Derek Curiel, that would still be massive. Like that would still be massive. But again, you're in a spot right now where it's always interesting when it comes to the MLB draft because these guys are going to get offered 7 figures. Like Derek Curiel is going to get offered 7 figures. Jake Brown is going to get offered 7 figures. Steve Milam is going to be offered a boatload of money as well to come and pursue their dream. Like I'm sure their dreams were to play for LSU and to play college ball, but these guys have a dream of playing in the pros, and they had the opportunity to go and do that. So as I said yesterday, I would be thrilled. I would be so happy if those guys came back, even if one of the three came back. Do I think it's likely? I don't know, man. I don't know. It's hard when you're going to get offered the type of money that they're going to get offered. And I know LSU's going to try to offer them something and try to lure them back. And again, even if you get one out of the three, is still huge. I think, yeah, it's kind of a wait and see game right now. It's kind of a wait and see game right now with the MLB draft with those three guys, especially with Stephen Milam and Derek Curiel and Jake Brown, because they're all going to have difficult decisions to make. Like they're all going to have difficult decisions to make. And then not only that situation with the draft, but you also got to think about the incoming freshman class. Right now, according to Perfect Game, LSU has the number 2 class in the country with 24 commits. 11 of those 24 top 100 prospects. But it's different with baseball. Like last year, you lost 8 high school commitments to the draft last year. You lost 8 high school commitments to the draft last year. I'm sure you're not going to be able to keep all 24. Like you're just not, especially when 11 of them are in the top 100. Now, if you lose 8 this time around, you still bring in 16. You still manage to bring in 16. But again, you just don't know. You just don't know. Hopefully the draft doesn't hurt you as bad as it hurt you last year. Hopefully it doesn't, right? But when it comes to Derek Curiel, when it comes to Stephen Milam, when it comes to Jake Brown, all 3 of those guys are going to have decisions to make. Again, you're not getting all 3 back. But if you got one of the 3 back, that would still be massive for 2027. And then you also have all of the stuff with the high school class and everything, and how many of those guys go pro, how many of those guys do you lose to the draft, and all of that. The transfer portal opens up in June. The transfer portal opens up in June, and you have to be aggressive. And Jay Johnson will be aggressive in the transfer portal. I think you need 2 outfielders. I think you need 2 infielders. That's what I think you need positionally. And I think preferably give me guys that are more athletic than the guys you brought out of the portal in this past cycle. Because the infield defense, we talked a lot about this yesterday, but the infield defense was a problem. Like, it was a problem this year. And there really wasn't any way to fix it midseason. There really, really wasn't. So, yes, I'm not saying don't go after good bats. I'm not saying don't go after good hitters in the portal. I would be an idiot for saying that, obviously. But you got to get some athletes who can give you good defense and better defense than the guys you got out of the portal last year. Like, I made the Michael Braswell comparison yesterday. Didn't Michael Braswell always have the best hitting numbers when he was at LSU for 2 seasons after transferring in from South Carolina? No, he didn't. But you know what? He was your everyday third baseman down the stretch in 2025, even though he might not have put up the greatest hitting numbers, because he was a good defensive third baseman at one of the premier positions on the field, on the diamond. So it's going to be really interesting. And again, you got to be aggressive, and you will be aggressive. Like, I think you need 2 outfielders. You need 2 infielders. I wouldn't be shocked. I know you have Case and Evans, Cooper Moore, William Schmidt coming back. I would not be shocked if you try to grab another high-quality starter out of the portal to test those guys, because you've been successful with that. While Jay Johnson's been here, think about the transfer pitchers that you brought in. Paul Skeens, Gage Jump, Luke Holman, Anthony Ianson, Zach Cowan, and yes, Cooper Moore, who you hit on before he got hurt. Before he got hurt, he was the best starter on this team, on this pitching staff. Like, that is, again, and then the bullpen. I mean, the pitching staff as a whole was bad this year, guys. It was bad. It was one of the worst in the conference this year. Yes, you led the conference in strikeouts, but you were also dead last in team ERA, basically, and runs allowed and walks and wild pitches. It was bad. It was bad this year. So, again, there's nobody I would rather lead this program than Jay Johnson. I still think he's the best coach in the country. I know this season doesn't help my argument with that, but I still have all the faith and confidence in the world in Jay Johnson and Nate Yeskie to get this team back to where they belong in 2027. And I'm excited to see what the next couple months are going to hold. And the transfer portal in June, what are the decisions that are going to be made with the draft when it comes up in mid-July? Like, all of that stuff is going to be interesting, and it is going to be interesting how it plays out. The next step for you is aggressive and attack the transfer portal. Attack the transfer portal. Like, attack the transfer portal like you don't know that my mind is attack the transfer portal like Derek Creo and Jake Brown and Stephen Milam are leading. That is my mindset, which hopefully one of them comes back. Hopefully they do. I would love it. I would be thrilled. I would be the happiest Tiger fan in the world if one of those guys came back. Or, Lord willing, if multiple of those guys came back, which I doubt. I do, because of how much money they're going to get offered in the draft. But point being, I trust Jay Johnson. I trust Nate Yeskie. And the Tigers going to be back to where they belong and back on top in 2027. It starts in June with the transfer portal, continues with the draft, and I'm really, really excited about what Jay Johnson is going to do. Let that man cook. Let him cook this offseason. I'm confident that he will, and that this team will be back where they belong in 2027. But let me get to a few comments here. Trying to see what is up. I think Monster is our best chance to return. If Jake Brown slides in the draft, I think he will be back too. We didn't think Barry Jones was coming back last year either. I realize Jake Brown and DC are higher ranked prospects, but you never know. That's kind of what people are saying, is that, guys, I don't think Derek Creo is coming back. I don't. He's going to be a first round pick. Like, I hate saying that, and I would love to be wrong. Like, this is a situation where I want to be wrong. But with the amount of money that guy's going to be offered, I know what he said yesterday about he's still talking to Jay Johnson, but it's like he's going to get offered 7 figures to go and pursue his dream. And Jake Brown's also going to be a high ranked prospect as well. Am I saying they won't come back or can't or it's impossible? No, but it's like, I don't know, man. Like, to me, it's kind of wait and see, and kind of I'll see it when I believe it. Of course, I want those guys to come back more than anything because they're all three of them are phenomenal college baseball players. But it's kind of like it's a wait and see game to me right now. Absolutely, Randy. People forget. You got to remind them, Randy. People really, really forget. The only coach to ever win 2 natties in his first 4 years out of school. People forget that, Randy, whether or not you want to believe that. Closes the argument. Absolutely. There is no argument, Randy. There's no valid argument when it comes to Jay Johnson or questioning him. There's no valid argument. There really isn't. It's just people who are spoiled LSU baseball fans who just think if we're not winning a natty every single year, then burn everything to the ground, right? We're spoiled. And I understand, like, you didn't live up to the standard. You got to at least make the postseason, right? You do got to make the postseason. But I'm telling you, man, like, Jay's going to have a bunch more time, a lot more time to recruit and to go after it in the transfer portal. You got to think last year he was going after players in the transfer portal while he was in the middle of coaching his team to the 8th national championship in program history in Omaha. Like, that stuff was happening at the same time. Like, you got to think about that, and he's going to have a lot more time now, a lot more time here to do that and go after it. And he's had success in the portal before, and he's going to again. And I'm confident, very confident, that Jay Johnson will have this program back where they belong in 2027. All right, let me take a sip of my water before we get to a fun segment to close out the show. All right, this is going to be different. Most everything we talk about here has something to do with LSU. This is not. This is something I wanted to do, something I thought would be fun. Unfortunately, this year, this doesn't involve LSU. And that's I'm going to give my predictions for Omaha and for the College World Series. Of course, the regionals start tomorrow. I am pumped. If you don't know this about me, if I haven't said this before, this weekend coming up is one of my favorite weekends as a sports fan. It's one of my favorite weekends as a sports fan. I absolutely love it. I love this weekend. If you don't know what squeeze play is, it is glorious. I love squeeze play. Squeeze play is basically the college baseball postseason version of NFL Red Zone. It's on ESPN Plus every single year. One of the best things, one of the best times of the year that I have as a sports fan, because I love college sports and I love college baseball, is sitting down on this weekend and in my chair in my living room and just watching college baseball on squeeze play for basically a whole day or 3 days. And I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. And I'm pumped to do it again, even though it's really weird this year that LSU is not involved. Like, it is really, really weird. The first time since 2011, LSU not involved, right? I'm going to preview the regionals a little bit. I'll talk a little bit about, I'll give you some regionals that I have my eye on. Now, this won't be the most in-depth breakdown, folks. I'm going to be honest, but I'll put a couple of things together and I've kind of thought about this. I'll give you some regionals to look out for. I'm not going to pick every regional, but I'll give you my Omaha 8, the 8 schools that I think are going to be in Omaha. I'll give you my Final Four. I'll give you my CWS finals and like who's going to be the final 2 teams in the finals in Omaha. And then I'll give you my national champion. And I would love for you to participate in this as well. And I would love for you to participate in this as well in the comments. Give me your Omaha 8. Who do you think is going to win this year? I know this is a little bit different because I don't usually do stuff like this. And, LSU obviously is not in this year, but I still wanted to do it because this is one of my favorite weekends and favorite times of the year is the college baseball postseason. I think you got some interesting regionals this weekend. There's a few of them I have my eye on. I think one of the ones that I'm going to pay attention to the most is the one in Lincoln that Nebraska is hosting. Nebraska is hosting a regional for the first time since 2008. Had a really, really good year in the Big Ten this year, and they're a really, really good team. So Nebraska is hosting that regional for the first time since 2008. And I think it would be really cool if Nebraska got to Omaha, because imagine you see all those fans from Lincoln, Nebraska go over to Omaha and basically pack Charles Schwab Field. Like, take over Charles Schwab Field because LSU's not going to be there this year. So I think that'd be cool. But this regional has epic competition in it. I think you're talking about a 2 seed in Ole Miss, who has one of the best starting rotations in the country with Cade Townsend and Hunter Elliott and Taylor Rabe and guys like that. Like, that Ole Miss pitching staff is legit. They're the 2 seed. And then the 3 seed is Arizona State, who has one of the best players in the country. If you don't know who Landon Harrison is, then, he's a Golden Spikes Award semifinalist. I'm pretty sure he's batting over 400 this season at Arizona State. He is a beast. He is a stud for Arizona State. I think the 4 seed in this regional is South Dakota State, but really, Nebraska, Ole Miss, Arizona State, that is one of the regions I'm looking at. I'm also looking at the one in Lawrence, Kansas. The Kansas Jayhawks are hosting a regional for the first time since the 90s, I believe. And this is always one of the best parts, to seeing these schools who had a great season get to host and get to bring postseason baseball to their home ballparks. And it's going to be electric in Nebraska. I'm sure it'll be electric at Kansas. But Arkansas is the 2 seed in this regional. Arkansas feels they got robbed, feels they got snubbed from a host site because they had a really good end to the season. And in the SEC tournament, they made it all the way to the SEC tournament finals. They beat Tennessee. They beat Texas. They beat Auburn in the SEC tournament before they lost to Georgia in the SEC tournament finals. They probably feel really upset that they didn't make it, right? Or that they didn't make a host site. And then Missouri State is in here as well as a 3 seed who feels like they're in the postseason a lot, and they've had a couple good years every now and then. And then the 4 seed is Northeastern, which this is something we haven't talked about. But Jay Johnson, it's clear to me now, and clear to all of us now, should be at least, that Jay Johnson knows how to schedule non-conference opponents. Because you played Northeastern in non-conference, you played UCF in the non-conference, you played Milwaukee in the non-conference. All 3 of those teams are postseason teams. All 3 of those teams are in the field of 64. That's something that doesn't get mentioned and talked about a lot, but I find that to be really interesting. So the Lawrence one is interesting. There's one in Hattiesburg. Southern Miss is hosting a regional in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. I feel like that's interesting because you got Southern Miss, you got Virginia as the 2 seed. First year without Brian O'Connor, who's the coach at Mississippi State now. I feel like that's an interesting one. You also have Jacksonville State as a 3 seed, which I don't know a ton about Jacksonville State, but I've been listening a lot this week to people talk and preview the regionals and kind of talk about it because, again, I love this stuff. I love this weekend. I'm going to love tomorrow sitting down and watching Squeeze play, and Saturday and Sunday, same thing. A lot of people are saying Jacksonville State is a sneaky team, sneaky 3 seed that probably should have been a 2 seed. And so I think the one in Hattiesburg is interesting. I also think Chapel Hill or Chapel Thrill, whatever you want to call it. North Carolina, congratulations. You are the number 5 team in the country, the number 5 overall national seed. And your 2 seed in your regional, you're rewarded with Tennessee as the 2 seed, who won the national championship 2 years ago. East Carolina, ECU is the 3 seed, who has the record. They mention this every year. It's a terrible stat if you're an ECU fan, but ECU's made the most regionals of any college baseball program in the country without ever making it to Omaha, without ever making it to the College World Series. They're in the postseason every single year. And then VCU is the 4th seed, who VCU is one of the top 4 seeds projected up there. So I think that regional is really interesting. I think there's a few. I think my top 2 I'm paying attention to are the ones in Nebraska, the ones in Kansas. I always like to see the teams that don't host regionals a lot, because I know that one's going to be the atmosphere. Like, I just haven't seen a game played in Lincoln, Nebraska before. I haven't seen a game played in Lawrence, Kansas before. Like, West Virginia is hosting a regional this weekend, and they don't host a regional a lot, but they're hosting one in Morgantown. So I'm really, really excited and hyped for this weekend. I want to go over my Omaha 8. Before we do, I'll give you my College World Series teams, my Omaha 8 teams. Let's see. I want to see what Jay is with. I'm looking forward to watching A&M and Lamar tomorrow. I graduated from Lamar in 1989. Will Davis has Lamar rolling. Yes, I did see that. Will Davis, the Lamar coach, taking the job with Houston, but he is going to coach Lamar in College Station in the Texas A&M regional. I did see that. I forgot to mention about the Hattiesburg regional. I forgot to mention that one. I mentioned it earlier, but I didn't mention the 4 seed was Little Rock in that regional. Little Rock took LSU to the brink last season. Like, Little Rock was the only team that beat LSU in the postseason last year and almost beat them in Game 7 of the regional final to end their season. Like, that was stressful weekend. Little Rock. So Southern Miss not only is the 2 seed Virginia, not only is the 3 seed Jacksonville State, who a lot of people are high on, but Little Rock is the 4 seed who really put a scare in LSU last year. My Omaha 8. One of them, I'll go through this side of the bracket first. One of them is going to be UCLA. I have UCLA in Omaha. UCLA is really trying to do something that is rarely ever done. They were the preseason number 1 overall. They're the number 1 overall national seed in the tournament this year, and they're trying to win the national championship. Basically go wire to wire all college baseball season as the number 1 ranked team in the country. That's what UCLA is going to do. I think they're going to make it to Omaha. I also have the Florida Gators making it to Omaha as well as one of my Omaha 8. I really like how Florida is trending coming into the postseason, even though I hate Florida and I can't stand Kevin O'Sullivan. Aiden King and Liam Peterson are undeniable as one of the best pitching rotations, one of the best starting pitching rotations in the country. So I have Florida there. Also, I have Brendan Lawson, who's going to be top pick in the MLB draft in 2027. I also have the Auburn Tigers in Omaha. Auburn's going to be in Omaha this year, in my opinion. Again, kind of similar to Florida. I think pitching really plays, especially in June. And you're talking about with Florida, one of the best starting pitching duos in the country. And then Auburn led the SEC in team ERA, had a phenomenal elite team ERA of 3.60 team ERA in the SEC this season. And they also, their starting rotation of guys like Jake Marciano and Andres Alvarez and Alex Petrovich are elite. And then you also got Jackson Sanders out of the bullpen as well, who is great as well. So Auburn's going to make it. One of my surprises, I have a few surprises here. One of my surprises is USC, the Trojans. They're in College Station. They are in Texas A&M hosting that regional. I have USC winning and getting, not only winning a regional, but getting to Omaha by defeating North Carolina in the Supers, actually. I pick some upsets each year, just some teams to ride on. The reason I pick USC is because they have a really, really good 1-2 punch. I'm trying to get the numbers right now. But they have a guy in Mason Edwards who has a 1.43 ERA in the 88 innings this year. And then their second starter in Grant Govil has a 2.84 ERA this year in 88 innings. So, like, that is elite level pitching from USC. They were one of the best teams in the Big Ten this year, one of the best 2 seeds. They really kind of were on the outside looking in of potentially getting a host if they had won a few more games. And I understand Texas A&M is one of the best teams, one of the best offenses in the country. Like, I understand that. My question about A&M is the pitching. The pitching staff for A&M was not one of the best in the SEC this year. Like, I understand their offense is elite. Like, their offense is elite, and I understand that. But I think USC's pitching, especially with the top 2 arms on USC staff, matches up well. And I question the pitching staff depth in a regional for Texas A&M. So one half of the bracket in Omaha, I have UCLA, USC, Florida, and Auburn. The other half, I have Georgia and Georgia Tech both making it on Omaha. I have Georgia and Georgia Tech both making it, which, by the way, I don't know what they're doing in Georgia this year, but those 2 schools mash the baseball. Like, those 2 schools are like, the best 2 offenses in the country in the same state. They're in the same state. Like, Georgia and Georgia Tech, 1, 2 best offenses in the country, both in the same state. That's crazy to me. I have both of them making it. I also have Texas making it to Omaha as well. I think the Longhorns are going to make it because they've been one of the best teams in the SEC this year. Anthony Pack Jr. has had a phenomenal season for them. And also, they got a really good pitching staff and a really good rotation with guys like Dylan Delancey, Ruger Riojas, Luke Harrison. Like, I think Texas is going to make it. And then my second surprise, I had 2 surprises in Omaha this year. My other one besides USC is I also have Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State, the Cowboys, they're second in the country in homers this year, only behind Georgia. They had a good year in the Big 12, and they're in the Tuscaloosa regional in Alabama. Alabama's obviously hosting that regional. And for some reason, like, I know they've had a great record and they've had a great season, but I guess I haven't watched a ton of Alabama baseball this year. I get because, LSU didn't play them and I didn't see them a lot. I'm just not that high on Alabama. Like, I don't know why. I don't know, partially because I don't like Alabama in general. But for some reason, I just feel like Oklahoma State's going to win that one. And then on the matching up with them in the Super Regional is Florida State, who's hosting the regional in Tallahassee. But Coastal Carolina is the 2 seed in that regional. Coastal Carolina is the 2 seed in Florida State's regional in Tallahassee. And I think there could be an interesting situation where Coastal potentially wins that one because they always play really good in the postseason. But I do have Oklahoma State making it to Omaha. So one side of the bracket, I have UCLA, USC, Florida, and Auburn. On the other side of the bracket in Omaha, I have Georgia, Georgia Tech, Texas, and Oklahoma State. My 2 big surprises, USC and Oklahoma State. Who do I have in the Final Four? My Final Four, I think Florida and Auburn are my Final Four. In my Final Four in one half of the bracket. And my other one is the 2 Georgia schools in Georgia and Georgia Tech. That's what I think the Final Four is going to be. Georgia and Georgia Tech have 2 of the best offenses in the country, the 2 best offenses in the country. Georgia won the SEC regular season and tournament. Georgia Tech won the ACC regular season and tournament crown. And on the other side, I kind of talked about Florida and Auburn already. Their pitching staffs, man. Like, their pitching plays, and it plays in Omaha. And I really, really think they're going to go far. My CWS finals, my College World Series finals includes Florida and Georgia Tech. I think Florida and Georgia Tech are going to play in the National Championship Series. And listen, I've been texting with a few people this week about, and AP has gotten mad at me. He got mad at me on Timeouts and Tangents on Monday about potentially, I really think Florida has a chance to win the national championship. I really, really do. I feel like all week I was going to pick Florida here. I feel like all week I just feel like Florida has been really, really good as of late, and I feel like they have the pitching staff and they have the bats. But I can't stand Florida, and I can't stand Kevin O'Sullivan. And I've been trying to talk myself out of this all week long. And when you look at Georgia Tech, you're looking at a team who leads the nation in batting average as a team, leads the nation in on base percentage, in slugging percentage, in scoring and runs scored. They lead the nation. They also are fourth in the nation in homers. They're second in the nation in walks drawn. They have two guys in their lineup hitting over 400. One of them is Von Lackey, and the other one is Jaron Edvicula, I think is his name. Two guys hitting over 400, and that doesn't even include Drew Burris, who has been with them for a while now and has been a superstar all 4 years he's played in college. For however long he's played, he's been a really, really good player at Georgia Tech. I was going to pick Florida. I was going to pick them earlier this week. I really was. And I don't mean to take anybody's pick because I know a few people have already picked Georgia Tech, but that doesn't really matter. We're just doing this for fun. I was going to pick Florida all week, but I can't do it. I can't pick Florida. I can't do an LSU podcast and pick Florida. Georgia Tech is your Babin on the Bayou prediction for your 2026 college baseball national champion. Really, really excited. I do think, honestly, guys, I really do think between Florida, between Auburn, and between Georgia Tech and Georgia, I can see all of those teams walking away with the title this year. I really, really can. I can see UCLA walking away with the title. I know a lot of people are picking UCLA because they've been the number one team in the country all season with a player like Rock Chalowski. I understand that. But again, my Final Four is Florida, Auburn, Georgia, and Georgia Tech. I think I could see all of those teams winning the national championship this year. I have Florida and Georgia Tech in my CWS National Championship Series. And then I was all week thinking about picking Florida. I was all week talking about it and thinking about it. But after much deliberation, I cannot be on an LSU show and be an LSU fan and hate Florida as much as I do and pick Florida to win the national championship. So, Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. I know a few people, like my buddy Zach Nunez, already kind of picked them, and a couple of other people I know have kind of predicted it as well. But I'm going to go with Georgia Tech mainly because, yes, they have a phenomenal offense. I mean, guys, they went 48-9 overall in the season, and they went 26-5 in the ACC, in the second best conference in America in college baseball besides the SEC. But one of the main reasons is I just don't want to pick Florida, and I don't want Florida to be I hope they get bounced out in the regionals, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But I'm taking Georgia Tech. I am taking Georgia Tech. Let's see here. Let's get in the comments. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I just kind of wanted to go through that. I really, really did. I really kind of wanted to go through that. Let's see. My top 4 teams are UCLA, Georgia, Auburn, and Florida. UCLA is the one that everybody's going to say, yes, Randy. Like, UCLA is the one. I understand it. Like, they're a phenomenal baseball team. They really, really are. So I wouldn't be mad about that. But, like, I don't know why. I just, again, all year long, or all really since for the past week, I've been thinking Florida was going to win the national championship. And literally 2 hours ago, I changed my pick. I changed my pick 2 hours ago, folks. So Georgia Tech winning the national championship. Love that upset pick. Govo only has 11 walks and 88 and 2/3 innings. Yeah. Suck it, Florida. AP was the one who was kind of giving me a hard time all week. I'm just joking. Not really a hard time, but he was like, why are you picking Florida? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? So I'm going with Georgia Tech. And yes, my two upsets, my Omaha 8 is, to recap, UCLA, USC, Auburn, Florida, Oklahoma State, Georgia, Georgia Tech, and Texas. Final Four, Georgia, Georgia Tech, Auburn, Florida. Championship Series, Florida, Georgia Tech. And because Georgia Tech had the best offense in the country, combined with the fact that I hate Florida and I can't stand Kevin O'Sullivan, Georgia Tech is my national champion. My surprise picks, UCLA or USC beating Texas A&M, winning the College Station Regional. I think I also had Coastal Carolina upsetting Florida State and Tallahassee. I also had Oklahoma State upsetting Bama in Tuscaloosa. I think there was another surprise regional winner I had. I filled up out a bracket like yesterday. But yeah, that's kind of what I have. I kind of had fun with that. Wanted to just go through it. Something fun. I think we may have a show tomorrow, guys. I don't know if we will for sure. If we don't, we'll definitely be back on Monday. We're still thinking about maybe coming back. But again, I know we usually just talk LSU stuff, but I love this weekend. And if you don't, like, I know LSU's not going to be in it, but I'm telling you, like, regional baseball is fun. So if you have time, I would suggest going and watching that this weekend because it's fun, especially if you have ESPN app and Squeeze Play. And yeah, so that's kind of what I'm going with. I thank you folks, though. I thank you guys. I thank you, Randy. I thank you, AP. I thank you, ATG. I thank all of you for tuning into the show today. Congrats to my guy, AP. For his announcement today, going to be doing stuff with And the Valley. And the Valley Shook, SB Nation, already doing great stuff with Canal Street Chronicles, and just AP is going places. He's going places, and he's a great friend and a great person, and he deserves it with all the hard work that he's putting in. And I really do mean it when I say I very, very much value our friendship, and I very, very much value you, my guy, and appreciate you. I appreciate all of you, from AP to ATG to Randy. Appreciate and love all of you for tuning into the show. Thank all of you. Let's get out of here. Have a great one. God bless. Go Tigers. Remember, as always, love God, love people. Babin on the Bayou, out.